I'm going to preview the Baylor versus BYU women's soccer game, which literally will be played on October 10th at 7 p.m. Central Time on ESPN Plus. Of course, there will be live sides as well, and I apologize for looking down because I cannot memorize all this stuff. Of course, the time is dependent on the weather, I know, and if the game happens or not. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Baylor is coming off of a 2-1 win against Colorado. Colorado actually did score late in the second half, but they called it offsides and they did a VAR. The goal didn't count. So Baylor did hold on to win that game, to say the least. And this was huge in terms of conference standings and RPI. And I'll go over like the RPI later and all this. Thus, Baylor is 9-1-2 on the year, 4-1 in the Big 12. And I could not have previewed this game against BYU until they played their last game, which was against Oklahoma State. But it's not like Oklahoma State's some good team or anything like that. And BYU did win that game. By the way, it was 4-1 at the very end of the day. And it was on the road at that. So good win for them, especially when the game before they tied with Houston 1-1. Thus, BYU is 7-3-2 on the season, 2-2-1 in the Big 12. And I will say, this BYU team did actually beat UCLA at home when UCLA was number 4 in the country when BYU was number 19. They obviously moved up, and then in conference play, they did lose to Arizona State on the road, the first game. Then they dropped again to number 16. Then they lost to West Virginia at home, actually, 3-2. Yeah, the only other conference win was against Cincinnati. That was 3-0, by the way. And y'all can check that other wins for BYU, like Minnesota, that was ranked in the beginning of the year. Though they did tie with Cal Poly, they did. So just let y'all know about that. And this is obviously a huge game for a few reasons. First one, I would dare to say, is conference standings, because when you look at it, BYU would be barely making the Big 12 tournament, which it's only for the top eight in general. So yeah, that is very important to note, especially when the quarterfinals and semifinals will be played at TCU and the championship will be played at Baylor for the Big 12 tournament. Right now, Texas Tech is 4-0-1. Baylor's 4-1, tied with TCU. They're also 4-1, and ironically enough, TCU plays Texas Tech next game, and they'll be on the road. Then there's West Virginia 3-0-2, Colorado 3-1-1, UCF 2-1-2, Arizona State 2-2-1, and then BYU 2-2-1. Yeah, they would be literally right there, barely scraping in, because other teams would be like Kansas 2-3, Arizona 2-3, Houston 1-2-2, Utah 1-2-2, Cincinnati 1-3-1, Iowa State 1-4, Kansas State 0-3-2, and Oklahoma State 0-4-1. So yeah, that's an obvious reason, because BYU could very well move up in the standings, while Baylor needs to stay around where they're at if they want to compete for the Big 12 regular season title race. This obviously is huge For RPI wise, and this is games up to today, October 7th, Baylor's RPI is number 4, while BYU's RPI is number 27. We'll have to wait and see as well if BYU, I don't think BYU is going to be ranked. They'll probably be more like a receiving votes team, if that. Because they were receiving votes last poll out. I don't know about them being a ranked team, though. Baylor should still be ranked because they won both of their games against Iowa State and Colorado. And it is a Colorado team that actually went on the road to beat TCU, by the way. So that is a quality win when I see one. Yeah, that's a few reasons why this game is important. I don't know about the rankings perspective yet. Obviously, Baylor needs to win this game if they want to stay ranked. While BYU wants to try and get back in the rankings, they have to win this game. So, at the end of the day, though, the rankings don't really matter. It's more like the RPI. So, yeah. Without a further ado, what are some players to keep an eye on? And we'll say BYU has used a lot of different formations this year. The last game was 4 defenders, 3 of 5 midfielders, 1 of 3 forwards. Now the other formations they have used, like 4 defenders, 4 or 5 midfielders, 1 or 2 forwards, 6 times this year, 3 defenders, 5 or 6 midfielders, 1, 2 forwards, 3 times, and 3 defenders, 4 to 6 midfielders, and 1 to 3 forwards 2 times. Yeah, I'm only saying one to like certain number to the certain number because on the live stats it doesn't show technically their position that they're going to play in, because sometimes a few players play 2 different positions. So yeah, I just wanted to go over that real fast. And I will say I do not know the injury stats for BYU and all this. They're starting goalkeeper, and you could tell who started who started X amount of games, and I'll put that in the description below as well. Payne Collins, number 1, 5 foot 10 inch goalkeeper. That's a sophomore, 11 goals and 35 saves, and she does have 5 shots attempted, by the way. Now I'm gonna go like multi-assist players / multi-goal players from here. Hall Dixon, number 2, 5 foot 2 inch midfielder as a junior, 1 goal and 15 shots attempted and 2 assists. There's Mika Kromenhoek, number 8, 5 foot 8 inch midfielder as a sophomore, 8 shots attempted and 3 assists. There's Ellie Walbruch, Walbruch, number 15, 5 foot 10 inch forward. That's a junior, 5 goals and 41 shots attempted and 1 assist. There's Mia Lopez, number 19, 5 foot 4 inch midfielder as a freshman, 4 goals and 25 shots attempted. There's Presley Freeman, number 20, 5 foot 7 inch defender. That's a sophomore, 2 goals and 5 shots attempted and 2 assists. There's Mia Goettsche, Goettsche. I apologize if I butchered that. Number 21, 5 foot 8 inch forward / midfielder. That's a freshman, 3 goals and 14 shots attempted and 2 assists. Yes. There's Lucy Kessler, which actually she scored both of her goals this year in the last game against Oklahoma State. Number 33, 5 foot 7 inch midfielder. That's a sophomore, 2 goals and 19 shots attempted and 1 assist. And one other like multi-assist player is like Emma Hammerlin, number 14, 5 foot 8 inch forward / midfielder. That's a sophomore, 11 shots attempted and 2 assists. And some other players that have scored this year that I didn't count as multi-goal players or assist players would be Mackenzie Vance, which she hasn't played every game this year. Gotta keep that in mind. It must be due to injury. It must be. Number 44, 5 foot 7 inch forward / midfielder as a senior, 1 goal and 7 shots attempted and 1 assist. And Matten Summers Oviet, OVIATT, number 30. 5'6" defender that's a sophomore, 1 goal and 1 shot attempted, which was literally last game. Gotta keep that in mind. There's like Afton Perry, number 12, 5'6" midfielder as a freshman, 1 goal and 12 shots attempted. And a few, like two more players I really need to go over, and that's it. Sophie Sivulich, Sivulich, number 10, 5'3" midfielder / forward. That's a freshman, 1 goal and 18 shots attempted. And the last player is like Avery Fritchen Connect, KNECHT. Number 4, 5'10" defender. That's a junior, 1 goal and 5 shots attempted. And she's had that stat like right there for a little bit now. So I wonder if she's injured or something. I don't know. And like I said, I don't know the injury status. They don't do that like the injury status for like they do in football or like men's and women's basketball they're going to do for conference games and all this. They don't do that for this sport. And I want to just go over one thing real fast. I do think this is a revenge game for Baylor when I see one. Because last year BYU actually had a 1-0 lead, then Baylor took a 3-1 lead, and then they allowed 2 goals within like a minute of each other. And it was a 3-3 tie. And it was one of the reasons why Baylor didn't make the NCAA tournament last year. It's one of those reasons. Maybe you could say BYU wants revenge too, given where both of these teams are at, but I think the revenge is so much more for Baylor going into this matchup than BYU's. I will say though, this Baylor team is better than last year's Baylor team, and there's no debating that. Look at the amount of wins already, both overall and conference-wise. Yeah, they are more conference wins this year than they did last year. And if you would have told me Baylor would have an RPI number 5 in the top 5 in the country at this point, I would say I don't know about that. But definitely have exceeded expectations a little bit. Not going to lie. And this is also a revenge game because 2 years ago when BYU played down here, BYU won this game 4-0. But that was a different BYU team in terms of experience, first of all. And second, Baylor was not as good back then. Now, you would argue Baylor is the better team and they're at home. And not just home field advantage and all this. And I know BYU at the time was they were really good back then. I mean, 23-3 overall. 7-0-3 in the Big 12. And they did make it to the Final Four that year. And this BYU team is not as good as back then. Let's just be real. Maybe they're as good as last year because of the RPI, if anything. So yeah, I would say this is a revenge game for those 2 games alone, because some of the players on this Baylor team already played them twice. Straight up. Yeah. I would say that's a revenge game. For sure. Whatever you did right last game, you got to bring it to this game. Whatever you did wrong last game, you got to correct for this game. Yeah, there might be some questionable calls, but you got to be the more mentally tougher team and make plays to win. And that's unlike Colorado's coaches that were crying and really being upset with the refs on the VAR, and they decided, hey, keep it as an offside late in the game instead of a goal. At the end of the day, there was a reason why Colorado lost that game. They allowed one player to beat them twice, and they didn't score enough. So out of the way here. You gotta keep your calm and cool and composure, and you don't want to get a red card because then it's 11 versus 10. If BYU does that, they do that. And some of the yellow cards anyway is a red, and obviously 2 yellows on 1 player is a red. You don't want to do that and be in that situation to begin with. And if that does happen and it's for the opposing team, you got to do a better job against 11 versus 10, unlike that Denver game. And defensively, you got to be good in those 1v1 situations, force turnovers on their own end, and then in the midfield. And even whenever they get close, try to make them turn the ball over. And don't give them any clean shots or any clean passes. And you got to shut down the best players as much as possible. You got to be good in those set piece defenses on defense. And don't want to foul in the box or do a handball in the box, because that means a penalty kick, and that is just a guessing game. And obviously BYU does that. You got to take advantage of it. And you don't want to foul near the box either, because it could be a dangerous situation like you did against Colorado late in the game before they called it offside. You don't want to put yourself in that position to begin with. And you try to get the ball cleared out as much as possible. And if you're dealing with adversity in the game, you got to be mentally tough and focus on the next play and win the 50-50 balls in the air and on the ground as well. Offensively, you got to be really good in your set piece offense, like whether it's a free kick or corner kick. And I know there's other ways to score with the sequence of passes and score a goal. Or try to beat them 1v1. You got to be good in those situations. And obviously, if they do a foul near the box or in the box, it's really on them. And like I said, I cannot really count on officials making calls, because at the end of the day, you got to make plays to win. You got to have your key players step up as much as possible, and your bench players as well. And this is the only game of the week for both of these teams here. And let's go out there and protect home field and get revenge from BYU from the last 2 meetings. Because, last year we really shouldn't have tied with BYU. Baylor shouldn't have tied with BYU, if we're being honest. And 2 years ago, they beat us pretty bad. BYU did beat Baylor pretty bad down here. Now, this time, let's try to get a lead and keep it, if not extend it. And leave no doubt, if you can. And if you really want to consider yourself to be a Big 12 title contender in the regular season, you got to protect home field. Try to take away the BYU fans in the game, and you got to get your home crowd involved as well. So let's go out there, give our best shot. This would also improve your RPI some. This is a game that could help RPI down the line as well, besides conference play. So anyways, if you like this content, hit the like, subscribe button. See you guys later on the road to 800 subscribers. Goals, ultimate goal is 1,000 more. Some of my this course like video, comment video really helps YouTube algorithm. Some more people see us, sharing the video does help as well. Some more people could watch, and if you're watching and not subscribe, hit subscribe buttons, ring the notification bell as well.